In the Humanitarian Innovation Project, we're looking at the role of innovation, technology in the private sector in relation to humanitarianism in general and refugee protection in particular. Generally, it's assumed that humanitarianism has to be state-led. Donor governments provide funding to international organisations and NGOs to respond to vulnerable populations. In fact, what we're recognising is that the private sector may be an important actor, both formally and informally, for supporting those humanitarian responses. By innovation, we don't mean novelty or invention. We mean taking products and processes that already exist in certain contexts and adapting them to particular field challenges, particular problems, and applying them to certain contexts. Innovation is really a process. It begins by identifying a particular problem, looking for sources of inspiration in best practices elsewhere, and then piloting them in very particular contexts until you find a solution that works and then taking it to scale. Innovation relates to refugees on at least two levels. Firstly, it relates to improving emergency response, making it more efficient. If we think about emergency response, it divides into a range of subsectors around water, sanitation, shelter, health, nutrition. In all of those areas, there may be untapped products and processes across the humanitarian world, but also in the private sector that can be drawn upon in innovative ways. At a second level, innovation can be applied to address so-called protracted refugee situations, in which refugees are often left in an intractable state of limbo, confined to refugee camps or settlements for 5, 10, 15 years, without the right to move or the right to work. We think we can use innovation to build upon the entrepreneurship, skills and aspirations of refugees and build their own livelihoods in a way that moves from dependency to sustainability. There's a great example that comes from our research in Uganda, and that's of a Ugandan entrepreneur called Moses Musasi. He's set up a company called Technology for Tomorrow, and they have a product called the Macapad, which is a sanitary product for women. And that product is being produced in a small factory in a refugee settlement, the Chiaka 2 settlement, and it's then being sold to UNHCR to distribute amongst refugees. But what's interesting about that is, even beyond the refugee context, T4T is trying to then scale that to the whole Ugandan market. Our research has two tracks. The first is what we call looking inwards, which is starting at the bottom-up level, looking at refugees' own sources of inspiration. How do they relate to markets, the private sector and technology, and integrate it in their own day-to-day lives and livelihoods? And we're trying to document and understand that by starting our work in Uganda. The second track is called looking outwards, where we're trying to capture all of the untapped areas in which, within the humanitarian context, but also outwards across the private sector, there may be products and processes that we can document and record as sources of inspiration. And we're recording them in a humanitarian solutions database. And some of those solutions we're going to research in a lot more detail to understand and improve the humanitarian innovation process.